5:12 local time, Northern Arabian Sea. The water is almost perfectly still. The wind is light, the horizon is clear, and visibility stretches for miles in every direction. Cutting through the deep blue at 18 knots is USS Gerald R. Ford, the most advanced aircraft carrier ever built. From far away, she barely seems to move at all, like a 100,000-ton island of steel gliding silently across open water. On the flight deck, the morning routine is already underway. Deck crews move between rows of parked F/A-18 Super Hornets, checking equipment, securing gear, and preparing the first patrol aircraft of the day. But below the deck, the mood is beginning to change. Inside the carrier's operations center, radar screens glow in the dim light. Green sweeps rotate across the displays, tracking everything around the strike group. Commercial routes, cargo vessels, fishing boats, distant traffic scattered across the Arabian Sea. Then a new contact appears. Bearing 041, range 28 nautical miles.
One radar operator leans closer to the screen. A second contact appears behind it. Then a third. 3 vessels. Tight formation. Speed 16 knots. At first glance, nothing about it seems unusual. That speed is normal for naval traffic in the region. But the course is what catches attention. All 3 vessels are moving directly toward the carrier strike group. The system begins comparing hull profiles and signal patterns. A few seconds later, the identification appears on the screen. Iranian Navy.
Inside the room, no one raises their voice. They do not need to. The officer of the watch marks the track and sends the report forward. 3 surface contacts, Iranian naval units, bearing steady. On the bridge, the information arrives almost instantly through the ship's internal network. Outside, nothing appears different. The ocean remains calm. The carrier holds its course. The horizon looks empty. But inside the ship, every sensor is now watching those 3 contacts. At 5:14, the radar picture updates. The vessels are accelerating. 16 knots becomes 21. Then 24. At the same time, the formation tightens. Instead of spreading out, the 3 ships move closer together, shaping into a shallow triangle as they continue closing the distance. A supervisor in the operations center studies the screen. Their course has not changed. They are still coming straight in. At 22 nautical miles, the strike group begins the first step of standard maritime procedure.
A radio message is sent across open frequencies. Iranian naval vessels approaching United States carrier strike group. This is a US Navy vessel operating in international waters. Adjust course immediately and maintain a safe distance. The message travels across the water. No response. The 3 ships continue forward. Then their speed increases again. 27 knots. That is no longer routine patrol speed. That is an intercept profile.
Inside the operations center, the watch team shifts posture without a single shouted order. Additional data windows open across the displays. Long-range optical systems turn toward the incoming vessels. Electronic sensors begin recording every signal in the area. At 5:16, the range drops to 19 nautical miles. Then another detail appears. One of the approaching ships has activated its surface search radar. On the electronic display, the signal shows up like a thin line of static. They are scanning us. The phrase moves quietly through the room. It means the ship is measuring distance, speed, and heading with more precision. The officer of the watch gives a single nod. Log it. Above them, on the bridge, the captain stands behind the forward windows with binoculars in hand. The Iranian vessels are still beyond visual range, hidden somewhere past the curve of the Earth. But the Ford's sensors can see them clearly. At 5:17, the approaching ships push even harder. 30 knots.
For vessels of their size, that means near maximum power. The triangular formation sharpens. Each hull angles slightly inward, all 3 continuing toward the center of the strike group. This is no longer simple shadowing. This is pressure. Back inside the operations center, a new signal suddenly rises across the electronic display. Different radar, stronger, narrower, more focused. The technician looks up from his console. Precision tracking radar detected. The room becomes still. Search radar means observation. Precision tracking radar means the situation has moved into a more serious phase. The officer of the watch checks the range counter. 16 nautical miles, closing fast. He reaches for the intercom. Bridge operations. Iranian surface group has activated precision tracking radar. There is a brief pause. Then the captain's voice comes back, calm and controlled. Understood. Across the strike group, defensive systems move to a high state of readiness. On the flight deck, crews work faster around the waiting aircraft. A Seahawk helicopter begins spinning its rotors, slowly at first, then faster, its blades blurring against the morning sky. Inside the operations center, another radar operator suddenly speaks up. Deck activity detected. The screen confirms it. Infrared sensors pick up 3 intense heat signatures from the approaching vessels. For a moment, they appear only as bright flashes against the cold background of the sea.
Then the trajectories appear. 3 high-speed objects low over the water, moving directly toward the carrier strike group.
The operator does not hesitate. Inbound tracks, sea skimming profile. And in that moment, the quiet calm of the Arabian Sea is gone. Somewhere beyond the horizon, 3 fast-moving contacts are now crossing the water toward the most powerful aircraft carrier on Earth. 5:19 local time. Inside the operations center of USS Gerald R. Ford, 3 red vectors cut across the radar display.
Thin lines stretch over the digital map of the ocean, moving fast, low and steady.
Sea skimming profile confirmed. Speed just below Mach 1. The officer of the watch reacts immediately. Confirm tracks. The radar operator checks the display, then answers. 3 incoming missiles, bearing 041, range 14 miles. Flying barely 30 feet above the waves, the missiles are using the ocean itself as cover. At that height, radar has to separate them from the clutter of the sea surface. The idea is simple. Stay low, move fast, and leave the defenders only seconds to react. But the carrier strike group has already detected them. High above the fleet, an E-2D Hawkeye airborne early warning aircraft picks up the launch signatures almost immediately. Its radar scans far across the sea, sending tracking data directly into the Aegis combat network, protecting the ships below. Inside the operations center, the intercept solution begins calculating in real time. Time to impact, 90 seconds. The destroyer screen reacts before anyone on the carrier can visually see the incoming tracks. 8 miles ahead of the carrier, USS Arleigh Burke shifts from patrol mode to full defensive engagement. Deep inside the ship, the vertical launch system comes alive. Along the forward deck, steel hatches open in sequence. A command moves across the tactical network. Engage. 2 SM-2 standard interceptors ignite inside their launch cells. From the carrier's bridge, sailors see 2 columns of fire rise from the destroyer's bow as the interceptors leap into the morning sky. For a moment, they climb almost straight upward, leaving bright white trails behind them. Then they turn. Guided by shared radar data from across the strike group, the interceptors roll over and race toward the incoming tracks. Inside the operations center, the call comes in. SM-2 away. The first interceptor meets one of the incoming missiles high above the water. On radar, the contact becomes a sudden burst of static. 1 track disappears. 2 remain. The remaining missiles adjust automatically, dropping even lower as they continue skimming over the waves. At that height, the curve of the Earth and the movement of the sea make them difficult to track until the final moments. Range now 8 miles. Impact in 40 seconds. The carrier's layered defense moves to its next stage.
Another destroyer in the screen, USS Mason, locks its radar onto the 2 remaining tracks.
ESS-M ready. The evolved Sea Sparrow is built for exactly this kind of moment. Fast, agile, and designed to catch threats that break through the outer defensive ring. 2 more launch cells open. Twin interceptors launch from the destroyer, streaking across the sky and leaving twisting trails of white vapor behind them. Inside the operations center, the radar operator watches the intercept geometry tighten. Intercept in 5, 4, 3. A bright flash appears on the radar display. Another track disappears. Only one remains. Now the numbers are changing too quickly. Range 4 miles. Time to impact 15 seconds. The final missile is flying just above the waves. Its seeker is locked onto the enormous radar signature of the carrier. At this distance, the destroyers no longer have enough time to reach it. The final layer belongs to the carrier itself. On the forward section of Gerald R. Ford, the Phalanx close-in defense system activates. The white dome mounted near the carrier's superstructure turns toward the incoming track. Inside the mount, a 6-barrel 20mm Gatling system spins up with a sharp mechanical whine. Target lock. Range 1,500 yards. The system opens fire. The sound cuts across the flight deck like a continuous metallic roar. Thousands of rounds pour into the air every minute, forming a glowing path of tracer fire across the sea. The incoming missile enters the defensive stream. For half a second, it keeps moving forward.
Then it breaks apart. A flash of fire erupts just over 1,000 yards from the carrier's bow. Fragments scatter across the water and fall harmlessly into the sea. The final track is gone. Inside the operations center, the radar operator lets out a breath. All 3 targets neutralized. But the relief lasts only seconds. The radar picture updates again. The 3 Iranian warships are still closing. And now the infrared sensors detect something new. Fresh heat signatures are appearing along their decks.
Their launch rails are opening again.
The officer of the watch leans closer to the screen. 3 new signatures ignite almost at the same time. Another volley. 3 more missiles rise from the Iranian vessels, their rocket motors burning bright as they climb briefly into the air, then drop low toward the ocean surface. The radar operator does not wait.
Second wave inbound.
Across the carrier strike group, alarms sound again. And this time, everyone understands the situation has changed. This is no longer a single exchange. This is a full engagement. 5:21 local time. The second wave appears on radar before the smoke from the first intercept has even cleared the horizon. 3 new missile tracks, low over the water, closing fast. Inside the operations center aboard USS Gerald R. Ford, the digital map flashes red again as the incoming vectors update in real time.
Range 16 nautical miles. Time to impact, just over 1 minute. But this time, the carrier strike group is already 1 step ahead. High above the fleet, 2 F/A-18 Super Hornets are circling in a combat air patrol pattern. They launched only minutes earlier for routine overwatch, but now their mission changes instantly. The lead pilot hears the call in his headset. Multiple inbound tracks, Vector 042. His radar screen lights up with 3 small returns moving fast toward the strike group. But then something else appears behind them. A faint airborne contact. Higher altitude, slower speed. Inside the E-2D Hawkeye, the weapons systems officer identifies it first. Iranian targeting drone. The small aircraft is flying several thousand feet above the missile path, acting as a relay platform. From that altitude, it can track the carrier's radar signature and send course updates to the incoming missiles. Without that drone, the missiles lose their guidance advantage. Inside the Super Hornet cockpit, the lead pilot adjusts immediately. Contact confirmed. He banks hard to the right, dropping altitude as he accelerates toward the drone. His speed climbs past 500 knots. Below him, the ocean flashes by in streaks of blue and white foam. Behind him, his wingman follows.
Back inside the carrier's operations center, the defensive network continues calculating intercept paths. The destroyers prepare their missile batteries once again. But the air wing is already moving faster than the threat. The Super Hornet's radar locks onto the drone. Distance 18 miles.
The pilot selects his missile. AIM-120, ready! The drone continues its steady orbit above the incoming trucks, unaware that a fighter is closing in from the side. The pilot presses the trigger. Fox 3! The AIM-120 AMRAAM launches from the fighter's wing with a sharp burst of flame, accelerating forward and climbing rapidly toward the high-altitude contact. A few seconds pass, then the radar return disappears. The drone breaks apart high above the sea.
Back in the operations center, the tactical display updates instantly. The incoming missiles lose their mid-course guidance. Without the drone feeding them course corrections, their paths begin to drift. One shifts several degrees off target. Another starts moving unevenly just above the waves. But they are still dangerous. At sea-skimming altitude, even an unstable missile can still cause serious damage if it reaches the carrier. The destroyers fire again. 2 ESSM interceptors launch from USS Mason, racing toward the drifting tracks. The first incoming missile is intercepted 6 miles from the carrier. The second disappears moments later in a bright flash over the ocean. Only one remains. But its path is unstable now, weaving slightly left and right as its seeker struggles to reacquire the carrier's radar signature. Inside the second Super Hornet, the wingman watches the remaining track. "I've got visual." He pushes the throttle forward. The jet surges ahead, dropping to just 200 feet above the waves. He lines up behind the missile and closes the distance quickly. From the cockpit, the missile looks like a white spear racing across the surface of the sea. The pilot steadies the aircraft and selects his next option: Sidewinder. The AIM-9X tone sounds in his headset as the infrared seeker locks onto the missile's heat signature. He fires. The Sidewinder leaps forward. 5 seconds later, it reaches the target. A flash erupts just above the water, scattering fragments across the ocean surface. All 3 missiles from the second volley are gone. Inside the operations center, the radar picture clears again. But now the operators are watching something even more serious. The 3 Iranian warships are still closing. Distance 13 miles, speed 31 knots. And their launch rails are still hot. The carrier strike group has stopped 2 full missile salvos, but the situation is not over. High above the fleet, the 2 Super Hornets bank sharply and circle back toward the Iranian ships. From this altitude, the pilots can finally see them. 3 gray hulls cutting through the water at full speed. Smoke trails still drift upward from their launchers. Inside the operations center, the captain's voice comes across the command network. Enough. The posture of the entire strike group changes in an instant. Until now, every move has been defensive. The fleet has been focused on protecting the carrier and stopping each incoming track before it could reach the formation. But now, the mission changes. The order is clear. Disable the launch platforms. The Super Hornet pilots roll their aircraft into a steep descent, accelerating toward the Iranian warships below. And for the first time since the first missiles appeared on radar, the fight is about to shift from defense to direct action. 5:25 local time. The 2 F/A-18 Super Hornets drop out of their holding pattern and descend toward the ocean. Altitude falls fast. 5,000 feet. 3,000. 1,000. Below them, the Arabian Sea stretches in every direction, calm and deceptively quiet. But ahead, 3 Iranian warships cut aggressive wakes across the water, still moving toward the carrier strike group at full speed. Inside the lead Super Hornet's cockpit, the targeting display steadies. 3 surface contacts, range 12 miles. The pilot tilts the aircraft slightly left, giving the radar a cleaner angle. The system maps the ships almost instantly.
Each hull appears as a sharp geometric shape against the moving clutter of the sea. Behind him, his wingman confirms the same picture. 3 contacts locked. Back aboard USS Gerald R. Ford, the order moves through the strike group's encrypted network. Disable the launch platforms. There is no hesitation. The Super Hornet's weapons panel lights up. AGM-84 Harpoon selected.
The system is built for moments exactly like this. Low over the water, radar-guided, designed to reach hostile vessels before they have time to respond.
The lead pilot steadies the aircraft. Speed 540 knots. Altitude 300 feet. At that height, the jet is barely above the surface of the ocean. Beneath the canopy, the Arabian Sea races past in streaks of deep blue and white foam. The range drops quickly. 9 miles. 8. 7. The radar locks onto the lead Iranian warship, the same vessel that launched the first volley. The targeting box turns solid. The pilot presses the trigger. Launch.
A Harpoon missile drops cleanly from the wing and ignites a split second later, its motor pushing it forward just above the sea. Almost immediately, it dives lower, 20 feet above the water. Its radar seeker activates, focusing on the metal signature of the Iranian vessel ahead. The moment the missile clears the aircraft, the Super Hornet banks sharply away. Behind him, the wingman lines up his own shot. Second harpoon away. Now 2 missiles race across the water, blending into the clatter of the ocean surface. On the Iranian ships, the warning comes too late. The lead vessel's radar briefly catches the incoming truck, but at that altitude, the reaction window is measured in seconds. Crew members on deck turn toward the horizon. Then the first harpoon reaches the lead ship. It strikes the starboard side just above the waterline. A powerful flash bursts outward as the impact rips through the hull and into the inner compartments. Flames rise from the side of the vessel.
Smoke pours from damaged structures along the deck. The ship immediately begins leaning to port. But the engagement is not over. 3 seconds later, the second harpoon reaches the second Iranian warship. It hits near the rear launcher section. The impact triggers a chain reaction through the aft portion of the vessel, sending fire and thick black smoke into the air. The shockwave rolls across the surface of the sea. Inside the Super Hornet cockpit, the lead pilot glances down at the scene below.
2 ships disabled, but the third Iranian vessel is still moving. Instead of stopping, it turns sharply to port and begins accelerating away from the strike group. Its speed climbs past 30 knots as it tries to leave the engagement area. Back inside the operations center aboard the carrier, radar operators track the maneuver. Third vessel altering course, but the ship is already being watched. High above the water, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter has moved into position. Its sensors lock onto the fleeing vessel and send precise coordinates into the strike group's shared network. Seconds later, another ship in the formation responds. From the forward deck of USS Mason, a launch cell opens. A single missile rises in a bright column of flame, climbing almost vertically before turning toward the horizon. Guided by the Seahawk's targeting data, it speeds across the sea. The Iranian warship continues its hard turn, engines pushing as the crew tries to create distance.
But the incoming track closes rapidly. Less than 30 seconds later, it reaches the ship. The impact strikes near the center of the vessel, sending a powerful blast upward through the deck. Flames rise as dark smoke spreads across the surface of the ocean. Within moments, the ship loses speed. Then it stops completely. High above the scene, the 2 Super Hornets circle back toward the strike group. Below them, the picture is clear. 3 Iranian warships, all disabled. 2 burning heavily.
The third drifting motionless in the water. The confrontation that began only minutes earlier has fallen into silence, broken only by the sound of fire, wind, and waves around the damaged vessels. But inside the carrier strike group, no one celebrates. Because the mission is not about celebration. The mission is control. And once again, the sea belongs to the fleet. 5:28 local time. The flashes fade across the surface of the Arabian Sea. Smoke rises in 3 dark columns above the water, drifting slowly with the morning wind. Debris floats between the damaged hulls of the Iranian warships. Their engines are silent now. Their wakes dissolve into the calm ocean. From 10,000 feet above the Arabian Sea, the 2 F/A-18 Super Hornets circle the area in wide, controlled arcs. The pilots scan the scene through their targeting systems. All 3 vessels are disabled. One is drifting heavily to port, with flames rising from the launcher deck.
Another is damaged near the stern. Its rear structure collapsed into a twisted shape of steel and smoke. The third sits motionless on the water, dark smoke rising from openings across the center of the hull. Inside the lead fighter's cockpit, the pilot sends the update. 3 targets neutralized. Back aboard USS Gerald R. Ford, the message reaches the operations center within seconds. Radar operators confirm the same picture. All 3 surface contacts have stopped moving. Speed, 0 knots. No new radar emissions. No additional launch signatures.
The officer of the watch gives a single nod. Threat contained. Across the carrier strike group, the tension that has filled every compartment for the past 15 minutes begins to ease. But the fleet does not relax. Post-engagement procedures begin immediately. High above the formation, the E-2D Hawkeye continues sweeping the horizon with its radar dome, searching for any additional aircraft or vessels that may be approaching. Nothing appears. Electronic systems scan the spectrum for new activity. Only silence. No further signals. On the carrier's flight deck, another MH-60R Seahawk lifts into the air. Its rotors beat against the ocean wind as it moves toward the damaged vessels to document the scene. The helicopter crew activates its sensors. Infrared cameras record the heat still rising from the ships. High-resolution optics zoom in on the damaged decks. Every image is time-stamped, geolocated, and transmitted back into the strike group's intelligence network.
In modern naval operations, documentation matters almost as much as response. Back on the carrier's bridge, the captain lowers his binoculars. Through the glass, he can barely see the distant smoke rising beyond the horizon. The entire engagement lasted less than 15 minutes. 3 salvos, 3 launch platforms disabled. The captain speaks calmly into the command circuit. Log the engagement. Inside the operations center, every detail is recorded with precision. Time of first launch, interception sequence. Air wing authorization, final surface contact status. Every second is documented. Every radar track is stored. Because in a carrier strike group, nothing is ever left to memory. The Super Hornets make one final pass over the disabled vessels before turning back toward the fleet. Their engines roar across the sky as they accelerate toward the carrier. Within minutes, the massive flight deck of USS Gerald R. Ford appears beneath them like a floating runway stretched across the sea. One by one, the fighters catch their resting cables and roll to a stop. Deck crews move in immediately, guiding the aircraft into position. Engines power down. The pilots climb out, helmets still under their arms. No one cheers. There are no celebrations. Only quiet professionalism. Because for the sailors aboard the strike group, this is not a story about victory. It is a reminder of something far more important. An aircraft carrier is never truly alone. Gerald R. Ford may be one of the largest and most advanced warships ever built, but its strength comes from the network surrounding it. Destroyers with layered defensive systems. Airborne radar watching hundreds of miles of sky and sea. Strike fighters capable of reaching far beyond the horizon. Helicopters, satellites, sensors and command systems, all feeding information into one coordinated picture. When those 3 Iranian warships launched their salvos, they were not facing a single vessel. They were facing an entire fleet.
And fleets respond together. The Seahawk circles once more above the damaged ships before turning back toward the carrier. Behind it,
The three vessels drift silently across the open water. The sea begins to carry the smoke away, and within the carrier strike group, operations continue as they did before the first warning appeared on radar. Jets refuel, radar scans the horizon, sailors return to their stations. Because out here, far from any coastline, the mission never truly pauses. The ocean may look calm, but every sailor in the strike group understands the truth. Out here, the next challenge can appear at any moment. And when it does, the fleet will be ready.